cloud.
I like to do it.
3, 2, 1. Here we go. Going live. We're live on Facebook.
Oh my God. What a world. What a world. What a world. Yeah, man. So, hi. Welcome
Hey, it worked.
Living NLP podcast. My name is Morgan Lane Bennett, and this is the smooth sound of Nicholas Rave coming at you. And we're here to talk not just shop, not just shit, but talk living NLP.
We're coming at you live from podcast land.
Live from Southern California. Here to talk about NLP.
I wonder how many people would listen to the whole show if we did it that way the entire way through.
I don't think I could do it that long. I don't think I could talk this long like this.
And today's anecdote, I'm going to tell you a story about one of my clients that I can do it. I can totally fucking do it.
I don't know. I got to figure out, who am I exactly?
Oh, God. I think I might need a shower afterwards, but I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, everybody. Yeah. Here in the Living NLP podcast, we geek out about how awesome NLP and hypnosis is, how much it's changed our lives, and how we use it to help other people change theirs. We do that by sharing a story, an anecdote of a client we've worked with, or some way that we've applied these principles in our own lives. And then we share a quote, and then we answer questions when we get them. Last week, I think I started. So what's your anecdote? What's your story? How have you, Morgan, been living NLP?
Living NLP.
Living NLP.
Like Casey Kasem now. Living NLP. It's very lurid. So how have I been living NLP? Actually, so the way I'm going to live NLP and the honesty, everything, because like I could say, there's been good stuff that's happened in the last week. I assisted Igor's metaphors.
Yeah. Like, can you give like brief rundown real quick?
Yeah, but that's going to be actually a little bit more of my quote.
Oh, never mind.
So
teaser.
Yeah, the teaser. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
So I could easily talk about any of the wonderful things that have happened, but I was thinking I would throw out to you something that I'm like, it's still a little. So I have a client. He's getting the results, despite the fact that he is not honoring the pre and post session email agreement. Just like maybe once out of 8 times has. And I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, oh, I got this. I just like emails, man, because he's a business person. And it's just always like, oh, if I see an email, man, it's like, all right. Well, do you understand why it's important to do it? Why it puts it, it's just so people know what we're talking about. After a session, there's a post-session email that they write that says, here's what I got out of it. Here's what I'm going to commit to. And maybe here's some feedback. Mm-hmm. And then there's a pre-session email before the next session that says, here's what I did. Here's maybe what I didn't do. And here's what I want to work on. Mm-hmm. Right? For lots of reasons, that's great. Not the least of which is it lets them own what they've learned, what they're committing to, what their progress is, what their problems are, and it keeps them on like sort of engaged in it like that.
Important point. These are supposed to be as little as 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, so
I'm not asking. This is not a huge like journaling exercise. Like it needs to be,
but to put some thought into it. And one of the times he did it, it was like one sentence, and I was like, you didn't put much effort into that. And he's like, no, I didn't. Right. So it's like you're not putting any effort into that stuff. Although he's still getting the results from our sessions, but then he commits to doing something. Then I don't ever end up knowing how did he do it? Did he not do it? What would have happened? What came up? Because the next time he's got another problem. Right. And I'm like, well, apparently he's like, I'm cured of all the stuff that we talked about, but all he wants to focus on is the problems that he has ahead, but not really the progress that he's making. There's not a lot of feedback coming to me. There's not even like much of a relation. I don't know what fucking like, I know I'm doing my job because he's already no, keep the money. You've delivered on something that he thought was impossible. Mm-hmm. But he's been a shitty communicator with himself for 40 years, which he no longer is for the most part, or at least he's out of the hole.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't think he could get out of. He's a terrible communicator with other people. And, so along those lines, finally, I'm like, dude, look, I can't have you as your coach. I cannot have you say you're going to do something and not do it over and over again. I just can't. Obviously, I've done my job. You've told me I'm cured, but here's my problem. But you're not doing the things that you agreed to do. And that's a problem for me. And step back to me, I've had to work on not taking that personally, which I haven't this time, but I'm starting to take it professionally. Mm. And that's where I'm like, look, so I said to him, look, man, I know you're not doing this to me on purpose. I know that you don't know how to communicate. I know that you're learning how to, whatever. And he doesn't seem to be committed. No, I'm committed. I think about this all day, every day. Our work. I'm like, but you have told me none of that. And that's on him. That's just his communication issues. So I'm like, okay, well, how would you like to renegotiate this so that we can do this, a similar thing where I get some feedback from you, you commit to things, you honor, or you just at least write down what you're getting, what you're doing, and what the problems are, and what we can, so I have some ideas. So we don't spend the first 20 minutes of our session having you tell me what all of this should already be done.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll leave you a message. I'll leave you a voicemail or voice message on a text, which to me is extremely subpar. But I was like, okay, cool, fine. Like I'll either transcribe it or I'll pull the words out for now. Didn't even do that. And then this last time I said, look, okay, it was Passover and your family. Had another session. Didn't do it again. Mm-hmm. So I'm at a bit of a loss. I'm wondering what you would do, because I'm not taking it personally. I know that he's doing his best.
Right.
I know he's not trying to hurt my feelings in any way. But at this point, I'm kind of like, I fired people for less.
Right.
But I know that he's not doing it on purpose. I'm just at a bit of a like, what would you do? So I wanted to not be everything's all great. I'm the best fucking coach in the world this time.
No. This is a good place to bring out. Yeah.
But hey, so what would you like? So at this point, he's not doing the thing he says he's going to do. And my only thing now is going to be like, look, if you go to see a doctor, which I'm not a doctor, but if you go see a doctor and he gives you medication and you don't take it, you're not going to get well. But if you're like, oh, I don't like pills, can you give it to me in a smoothie? I go, yeah, sure. Here you go. Here, take your smoothie. But if you don't drink the smoothie, you're not going to get as good of results. So I don't know how else to say that other than that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So big picture frame. I love the post-session, pre-session email format. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I think that there is something valuable about picking an accountability project that is challenging for a person, and it doesn't matter why it's challenging, and then making that the focus of the coaching as a doorway into a bunch of patterns. This is
obviously the issue.
Yeah. So I would caution you around giving him the impression that he's close to getting fired, because that is probably what he's waiting for. He's expecting you to get pissed off, frustrated, and then be like, okay, well, clearly you're not committed to this. And then he would walk away and he'd be like, I fucked it up again.
Right. Because
yeah. So instead, if you can be like again, our NLP frame, get curious and be like, this is fascinating to me that you keep saying you're going to do it. And how do you do that? How do you not do it? Now, as far as what to do, the two things I would say is, number one, make that, set the frame that this is what our coaching is about from now on. I don't care about any of the other problems that are going on in your life until you get to the point where you can do this one thing. And that means there are no other priorities in your life that are more important than sending me these two emails.
Well, that's what's going to get him out of there quick.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's the thing, then so be it. But
so then the second thing is, when you challenge someone like that, because clearly he's got stuff.
That would be him going, well, I'm going to take off. He'll be like, no, I'm here to deal with other things. So I hear you. I'm listening.
Well, but that's what I meant when I said you have to set the frame. You have to sell him on why that's worth it. why this is the
'cause this is
doorway
obviously
to all the deepest transformation.
Yeah, it's all communication. So
Right,
that's been his main thing.
Your responsibility then is to sell him on this idea of being like, listen, until you get this, we're not talking about anything else. He can't, if he runs away, you didn't sell him on it properly. So the next thing I would say is when you challenge someone at that level, you want to offer an equal amount of support. So here's a thing that I have done at least once with a client in a very similar situation. We took the last 10 minutes of the session and I helped them write the email because there was some part of them that kept saying like I'm just lazy. I don't have any discipline. I don't like doing things that I don't like doing. It makes me uncomfortable. But what they didn't actually acknowledge is that they actually don't know how to do it. Like they don't know how to wrangle their mind. So to take their hand and be like, okay, so for the last 10 minutes, I'm going to guide you through spending 5 minutes writing the email so that you're going to know how to do it. And I'll do that with you a couple of times if necessary. And then what I did the other one was the day before, I scheduled a 15-minute session to like just say hello, build a little rapport, and then be like, okay, so here's the steps. And one of the things you're trying to do is you're trying to show them how easy it is. Right. You're trying to be like, listen, this is not the overwhelming, terrifying task that you feel like it is.
Right.
And that happens through positive reinforcement and you being like, cool, yeah, good. No, that's wonderful. You did it.
I've been this guy's cheerleader. I've been the cheerleader of cheerleaders. Even and I'm like, because I get it. I see this as your problem.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm here for you. And how can I make this happen for you? And oh man, anything is better than nothing. And renegotiate before you flake and all this stuff. So that's good.
Right.
I appreciate that.
If you hold his hand while he's going through something that's super, super difficult and scary for him, it will shift the pattern. It will bring the pattern up in the moment, like Jorgen Rasmussen style. So you can actually go, ooh, look at that. What's happening right there? And he may voice beliefs like, the blank page is terrifying to me because there's a voice in my head that says, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. And then you can be like, cool, acknowledge that voice. What's that voice?
Probably going to be like, well, I didn't want to do it. We already agreed on like me sending you a text message. Mm-hmm. So I'll throw it back to whatever. And again, like if I got to fire him, I fire him. But I just, these are good. I like that. It's because I see it as a metaphor for his whole jam.
Yeah. One of my heading them off at the pass techniques is tell them your concerns before you tell them about their response, before you tell them what you're afraid of their response. So if you say, okay, I'm about to tell you something and I have a voice in my head that is saying, I'm going to tell him this and he's going to run away because he's not going to understand why I'm bringing it up and how I see this as the path to everything you want. Everything you want is on the other side of you figuring out this thing that I'm going to bring up. And I'm sure you are going to go, what the fuck? So if you say all that beforehand, you kind of take their ability to have that response away.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just proud of myself because in the past I would have taken this all personally.
Yeah. No, you're doing it way different now. That's great.
But still, it's just like, okay. I mean, it's
still an issue. It's still something. It's like, okay, so I'm not getting pissed about it now, but
at this point, I'm like, I'm not taking it professionally, but I'm personally, but I'm like professionally, I cannot allow this to happen. This is not. I work in integrity, and this is not it.
Yeah. Then it's about, okay, well, how do I get them to the point where we can establish a foundation of integrity and reliability? And that's where you're like, listen, this is not about the fucking emails. This is about your ability to say you're going to do something and follow through on it, which is everything.
Right. For him, it's exactly.
Yeah. So if you can sell him on that idea, then he'll go with you into, all right, this is what our coaching is about for the next couple of weeks.
Right. So I don't know how we can chunk that up for any NL peeps, NL peanuts. Same thing. If you are assigning tasking and they're not doing it, it would be the same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the task is.
They're not showing up. If they're committing and they're not doing And that's the thing.
Yeah.
And that is the issue. And then you start prescribing the symptom and all that stuff. And it's like, so, okay.
And personal, like not just with your clients, turn it on you and say the littlest thing can be symbolically representative of the deepest patterns. It doesn't really matter what the habit is. It's why I'm such a obsessed about how habits are a doorway into deep transformation, because you can pick the smallest little thing, but it's with the lessons you learn by mastering the habit that are the greatest value, not the habit itself.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, go.
Cool. Good one, man. Okay. Well, I am going to tell a story about, I need to modify some details of this one. So I'm going to
do that. Let me grab my coffee real quick.
No, I'm good.
I'm here. Like, here. Okay. Hey, all you guys backstage at my fucking podcast studio.
So this is an example of how you can say something to a client a lot of times, and it's gonna land when their unconscious is ready to hear it, So I have this client who is in a situation where they have to deal with someone. They don't want to use the nuclear option and destroy everything. So given their options, they've decided that the best way to handle this situation is to kind of remove themselves from the situation as much as possible and let it play out. And they have had this deep, strong urge to tell the other person what they really think and like put them in their place. And like it might even come from a place of caring about them. Like they want to smack them and be like, come on, wake up, like get your shit together. But it never works. It never really lands with the other person. So what I have been challenging them to do is focus on compassion, focus on non-attachment, find the place where you can see the wounded, traumatized child inside of this person who's acting out in all the ways that they're acting out. And that was all nice, but they would still get under their skin. Like consistently, they'd do something and they'd just, and then they'd have this urge to be like, I didn't pick a fight. I just I said one shitty little thing to them at the very end of the sentence, just to like make sure that I got my 2 cents in.
Right. The last word.
Yes. And it's like, I'm still, which is an improvement. They're being less antagonistic. It's not coming to blows. But it's the other person can tell that they're still getting under your skin. And that is part of the reason why they keep doing the things they're doing, is because when they push your buttons, even if they make you angry, at least they feel like they're getting a response.
Sounds like my cat.
Powerful. Yes. Your cat's a perfect example.
But he's much better now, but still.
Your cat is like the scientist with the button. Like he's pushing your button and being like, look, hey, right. Look what I can make Morgan do. Right.
It's like, and then he's like, I don't care if you squirt me. You're still doing something to me.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So this guy is getting that he's like, I need to get to a truly non-reactive place. And that non-reactive place is compassion. I really believe that. So slight detour, but it's worth it. I had told this metaphor hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. I share this with all my clients. I've shared it with him multiple times. And it's this idea that so many spiritual traditions in the world, Buddhism and whatever, talk about compassion, but they don't talk about how to do it. What's the strategy for compassion? So I have a theory, and my theory is that understanding leads to compassion. And if you haven't found compassion yet, it means you don't fully understand. So the idea being that if I could fully and completely understand you, everything that's ever happened to you, everything that's ever led to everything that's ever happened to you, your inner and outer experience, your limiting beliefs, your worldview, all of it, I could have nothing but compassion for you. I would see you and go, well, of course he responds that way. So I shared the Sam Harris free will is an illusion idea with him. So Sam Harris wrote a book called Free Will. Spoiler alert, you don't have any. It's a convenient illusion. So he says, imagine this. Imagine when someone does something bad, most people have a natural urge to punish, or for there to be retribution for that action. And this is based on the idea that the person has agency, that they could have acted differently than they did, and punishing that behavior will change their behavior in the future and potentially cause other people to behave differently as well. So Sam makes he's this thought experiment. He says, imagine we capture a serial killer who's murdered multiple people. Most people want retribution. They want this person to suffer. They want them to be punished at least. But now imagine that they do a medical examination and they discovered that this serial killer has a tumor in their brain the size of a tangerine, specifically destroying and interfering with the parts of the brain responsible for compassion, the sense of right and wrong, etc. Most people, no matter how dogmatic they typically are, feel the sense of retribution, the desire for retribution changes. I'm being intentionally vague. Most people are like, oh, well, it's not their fault. So shift it from the tumor even. What if it was an injury, a head injury? Like somebody gets a piece of rebar stuck through their brain and they survive, but their personality is completely different afterwards and they start gambling or stealing or whatever. Most people are like, oh, well, yeah, clearly that's not who they were before. And then this thing happened to them and now they're completely different. And then we're like, oh, well, we don't feel that same, I have to crush that behavior in them, because you're just like, well, of course. So Sam goes on to say, I'm paraphrasing, he basically says, we all have a tumor in our brain, metaphorically. And that tumor is everything that's ever happened to you up to this point that has molded and shaped you into who and what you are. And for some reason, this metaphor, this idea of the head injury in particular, clicked. And he came back a week later and he said, for the first time in years that he's been dealing with this person, they ran their patterns and he was like, he saw them as a kind of like a force of nature, like a hurricane. Like you don't get mad at the hurricane generally because there's no part of you that thinks there's anyone there to give a shit that you're mad. My son, one time we were driving, he was really young, and the stoplights kept hitting red every time. And he said, the stoplights don't want us to get there on time. And I thought that was a really interesting example of the way that we attribute agency to that don't have any agency. That, like, the truth is the stoplights, they not want us to get there. They don't want us to get there. There's nothing there to want anything. It's just a thing. It just is happening. If you start to think of people that way, as like there is no agency in there, they aren't capable of behaving differently than they are. It's a weird paradox for someone from the world of NLP where we think we have influence over other people and their behavior. But this starting from the ground level of nobody has free will, it's all pretend, and the other people are just relate to them as they are, is a doorway into, he said he has never gone through a week without getting by some pretty serious stuff that the pulled this last week. And he was just like, yeah. And it was authentic. It was real. It wasn't he's pretending he's not getting triggered. Right. He was really like, wow, it's really crazy that person acts that way.
Yeah, I have a client who I helped get over some childhood trauma that was definitely fucking with their ability to interact with people and communicate well, like so much of it is. And they got on the other side of that but it turns out that their significant other, they're having they have a terrible relationship because they both have that sort of issue. But now that my client doesn't have the issue as much anymore, he's now seeing the significant other as like, they kind of, I mean, they can't communicate. They, this just childhood traumas. They don't know how to communicate. And I was like, oh, but now that you know what that used to be like, maybe you can be able to at least see it from another perspective. Call it compassion. Call it
yes.
Like, oh, you mean like you used to have until a month ago? Oh, so you probably are the best person to understand exactly what they're going through and have genuine compassion for the fact that they're stuck in a thing that that's their own making. And you know what I mean? And like, maybe you just at least contemplate that the next time you're starting to think about what an idiot they are because they don't know how to communicate.
Yeah. Right. And it's like we have this part of us that is like, you're doing that on purpose. Right. You're doing that. You like could be acting better than you are, but you're choosing to be.
Yeah, like my client, like I'm not taking it personally. I know this is obviously so blatantly, and that's another thing. It's like when I get a lot of my work is around integrity and just doing what you say you're going to do, get out of your own way, do the things you say you're like, and people come to me because that is their problem. So I can't get mad at them, and of course.
Good point.
It brings up all their shit. And I used to be like, fuck, dude, like, why would you? Oh, that is your shit. Like, that's your shit.
Yeah, you shouldn't niche on integrity if you're not going to be cool dealing with people who don't have any.
Right, exactly. So, but then it's easy to go, oh, but is this what you meant to do? Oh, you didn't, right? But then this is the problem, isn't it? So
this is another way of saying a whole bunch of NLP presuppositions. I think like everybody's doing the best they can with the resources they have available. All behaviors are motivated by positive intent, et cetera, et cetera. But the story you told about the couple, it made me think about another element of this one where my client has started to see how they are so reactive to this person because they remind them of themselves.
Right. Well, that's what this.
Exactly.
They've been together for 30 fucking years.
Exactly.
Like, and so of course you hate them because you used to hate yourself. It's like it's all this stuff.
Yep.
Totes. All right. So I got 15 minutes. So the Igor thing was awesome. He's great. It was just about, how to, so I don't know if you know anything about clean language.
Yeah.
Right. So he took a lot of the aspects of clean language and called it, and symbolic modeling that they call it. And Igor's a little more hypnotic sort of paradigm, what's the problem, get the conscious mind out of the way, associate to some resources, do some transformation and test. So there's ways you can do that with metaphors if you frame it as that, and you just get curious about it. And then I actually started studying some clean language stuff with Penny something, like I forget what their names are, the two people who modeled it off David Grove. And what I like about it, and it's really a challenge for me, is not trying to fix anything.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Not trying to fix anything, but rather creating a schematic of the problem for helping them to do that for themselves.
Yep.
It's not about me. Oh, because I mean, honestly, people who come to see me, they have the same 4 problems and I know how to solve them. But like, that's not the point. The point is
you're not teaching them how to fish if you do that.
Right.
Right.
So it's about getting them to realize and focus their attention, strictly their own attention on their own words and the way that they've said it, and to fill in any gaps around that. Oh, I have this book I want to write, but I'm not writing it. It's like I'm just stuck and blocked. I know that I want to write this book, but I have all these these hurdles in the way, and I feel stuck. I have this book in my mind that I know that I can write. I've written it, but the progress I'm making isn't enough. and I just feel stuck and these problems. And my typical way is go, it's okay. So let's tell me about these problems, right? Yeah. Let's fucking go head into the wall. But what they would ask is, so you have a book in your mind, right? Where in your mind is that book? Right? And then where do you want it to go? What's in between? And what's on the boundary of this and that? And what would you like to have happen at the boundary of this and that? As opposed to, well, obviously your problem is this, and if you just do this and you can do a thing. But it's about helping them build their outcome landscape.
Yeah.
So they can so they can see the map of their own problem in their own words with their own metaphors. Is more along the lines of like, okay, what those problems are like. Okay, well, let's fix those problems. But then they still don't know where they were, how they got there. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to grab you and yank you over to here to your goal. But it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't really help them become fishers of their own self.
Yeah, it is a reframe. Even though you're saying like, I'm not trying to change it, by asking them these questions and giving them more perspective on the situation, aspects of it that were unconscious to them or that they'd never considered, that is a reframe. So you're still doing a reframe. It's just a reframe that the way I see it is it's like trusting the unconscious to resolve its own problem.
That's what it does. But once you just help it see itself, even go, okay, now take this and put it there.
Exactly.
So what's there? What's here? Well, what would you like to have happen?
Yep.
They'll usually just go, oh, well, now that I see that it's a this and that, okay.
Yeah.
But they'll tend to do that themselves. So
I've been doing
my quote quickly. It would simply be something that I thought was interesting because I mean we know this already, but metaphor allows nominalizations like relationships and patterns to be examined while retaining their wholeness as a metaphor.
Oh, yeah.
So it's without tearing it apart and pulling all
right.
But like you can still see there's this thing which represents all these processes. And there's this thing that represents all these processes. You can still help them arrange themselves without dissecting the entire thing. It can still have all of those things inside a thing. Right. All those processes can be in a little gray fox in a hole.
Yeah.
Means between, and then there's the elephant in the cloud that those two things represent all that, and those patterns are still there. You can still take them as things and interact them with each other, or encourage them to interact with each other without actually denominalizing every fucking thing and pinning it to a wall like NLP.
Which is so much more efficient because there's so many elements, potentially an almost infinite number of elements in those metaphors. But by either modifying the metaphor, like now the elephant is on the ground instead of in the clouds, or by modifying the relationships between the metaphors, the metaphors themselves will self-generate new.
So that's why this stuff is so cool, and it doesn't take all the time of the denomination. What is this? And it's not about. And I don't go, what happens if you take the elephant out of the clouds? For all I know, elephant needs more clouds and a trombone and a fucking jazz band behind it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the best part is how funny it is when people are surprised. Because the best time, they're in it when they're like, I don't know, Chihuahua.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, perfect. Exactly. You don't know. And yet you do. And then just let that, once you get the surprise answers, that's really the unconscious, like that's trance, it's hypnosis and whatever. And then you give agency to these things and you go, okay, well, what would you like to have happen? And what's around that? What's on the boundary of, so what's the problem? Oh, it's a lead weight at the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. Okay. So what's on the boundary? Like what's around there? What's on the boundary of that lead weight at the bottom of the ocean? Well,
it's like fleshing out the metaphors.
Right. Yeah. And that's what really the has been my things, rather than solve the problem, which whether my head is constantly at my ass or just partially at my ass, going, I can solve that. Or it goes, well, here, let's go to metaphoria.
Yeah.
Okay, what else is there? Is there anything else about this? What lead weight at the bottom of the ocean? What's on the boundary of that? Because by definition, what's on the boundary of the problem is the fucking solution, or something that's not the problem.
Oh, whoa, there's your fucking quote. Damn it. Oh, that was gorgeous.
Yeah. So it's like,
by definition, what's on the boundary of the problem is the solution.
Or at least something that's not the problem. And then you can find the solution from there.
Oh, that was that. Okay. Like, you did it.
Cool.
Wrap it up.
7 minutes. Rock my world.
All right. So this one is, really fabulous book about attachment styles and somatic experiencing or body trauma, forward by Peter Levine, who wrote all the books on somatic experiencing. Really liking how it applies to both working with couples and, being in a couple. So this is the very end of the
being
book.
In a couple couples?
Being in a couple couples. Yeah, being in couples. Yeah, that's less complicated. It certainly isn't. So this is sort of hopeful at the end. And he's talking about, he says, as we move towards secure attachment. So I just want to take that phrase and define it slightly before I continue. Secure attachment, I'm going to go a little more vague and say everything he's about to say is about healing. It's about resolving your trauma and becoming, like, what are we really doing here? Is this about getting people to be able to follow through on their commitments? No. What is this about? It's about, I see it as like evolution. Like, this is about evolving yourself. This is about enlightenment. This is about becoming the kind of person who you were meant to be, and by that, changing the whole world one person at a time. So this work, while it ends up being we end up talking about really small things, it's about growing as a person. And he paints a picture here of what happens in that journey as you really start to heal. And I think a lot of people that I talk to they're very disillusioned about personal development and therapy because they've done so much work and they haven't really started to see things improve and feel things improve. And I'm mostly as a voice of encouragement and hope to say it can actually get better when you're really doing the stuff that works. So as we move towards secure attachment, this is long. Our natural capacities come to the forefront. We're more compassionate toward ourselves and others. We develop a healthy sense of self while at the same time becoming more selfless. We expand our capacity for brain integration, and all the benefits of the various parts of ourselves come together. We can attune to ourselves and also to others. Our prefrontal cortex matures and becomes more developed, and that sensitivity to ourselves and others is good for all of us. Over time, there isn't such a division between taking care of ourselves, attending to others, nourishing our community, and nourishing the planet. We become global and eco-friendly citizens interested in what's good for all of us. We no longer view the world solely through the lens of scarcity and competition, but we collaborate with spacious understanding and expansive care toward all life. That just was like, I'm like, check. Right. Yes. Right. It was so beautiful and like, fuck yeah. Right?
Yeah, very spatial. Very, very spatial. Mm-hmm. He's all about there's so many spatial predicates in there. I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's about connection. So connection is spatial jam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then when you get into it, you're like, what's good for me is what's good for them, is what's good for the world. And then win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think to me, those kinds of things remind me that in my own life, working on the little things is working on the big things. And with my clients, it's not just about getting out of pain. there's more to go from there. That's just ground level.
Yeah.
But then you can build something.
Client who's like, yeah, I'm cured. I'm like, no, you're just
right.
the hole you were in.
Yeah.
You're now the door's open and you can,
Yeah.
you're out, but you're like, okay, even if that is cured,
right.
You're not well, you're not healthy, you're not thriving, you're not, what I mean? And then when there's that, then you bring other people with you.
Yeah.
Like you got to be able to, once you're thriving, if you can, help somebody out.
Yeah. I think that's natural too. I think like one of the things he said there is the distinction between helping others and taking care of yourself starts to disappear.
That's what I really liked. Yeah. Just doing stuff. That hair, by the way.
It's just getting bigger. Yeah, this is my Aryan afro.
My hair's getting smaller and yours is getting bigger. My forehead's getting bigger, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too. Actually, that's been a thing I've noticed recently that like for some reason, I don't know if it's just because it's longer, but like every time I wash my hair, I'm like, this is a lot of hair. Is it getting worse?
Yeah.
Might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm catching up to you.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right, dude.
Good.
Hear, speak, see, hear, all that good stuff.
Yeah. This was awesome.
Yeah. We'll catch you soon.
Cool. Peace, love, and NLP, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.